Here we go. Recording is on, and let's discuss the answers for the quiz for CSS that we had the deadline set for today. And now I have closed this deadline or this quiz. Now, the first question: what are the different ways to apply styles to a web page? So of course, you can have internal, inline, and external. And what is the best way? Use external. What is the worst way? Inline. What is the precedence order of CSS rules set when using element, class, and ID selectors? How does the important directive affect the rules? So element is of course the lowest priority, and then the class and the ID is or ID does have the highest priority, and then of course if you use important clause, then of course you are kind of overriding all the rules for cascading or precedence or whatever it is. What is the result of using following CSS rule? So what is that rule actually? Okay, so this is a universal selector, and you are saying, okay, put all the margins and paddings of all the elements in your DOM to 0. That's what you are saying. You are resetting all these things. So which is good. I mean, it just says that margin padding is set to 0 to all the elements in the DOM, because that's a universal selector. What are the vendor prefixes? Of course, for the partially implemented CSS3 properties, not CSS. These are CSS3 properties. So yeah, for the browsers who are shipping partially implemented CSS3 properties, sometimes they want. I mean, they are not standardized as of now. They are just been partially implemented by all these browsers, or whatever browser that has implemented will use some sort of vendor prefixes so that it doesn't collide with the real WCC properties. So of course we have Moz, WebKit, Opera, MS for Microsoft. Is CSS case sensitive? So CSS is not the case sensitive, but the ID ID element, or the class actually, not the ID, but yeah, the class attribute that you use, that is a case sensitive one in your HTML. So of course the class names should have the same names as you use on the class attribute in your DOM or on your HTML element. So you have, and other parts where you have to think about case sensitivity in CSS are the font names. They should be proper, and of course if there is some URL, like background image URL, so of course that is case sensitive. So that's why I didn't ask for you a single true or false. I gave you explanation, or I gave you place to explain. Otherwise I could have just said true and false, because question seems like that only, but no, it's not that. It's mixed. Give 5 examples of CSS pseudo selectors. So there are a lot many: active, hover, visited, after, before, first child, last child, end child, link, focus, all this. Why shouldn't the developer use the fixed size fonts, for example, using Pixunit? Well, the reason is should refrain from using fixed size font because number of pixel can vary with the screen resolution. Well, this is not the correct thing. Number of pixels stays same even if the screen resolution changes. What changes actually is the area covered by those number of pixels. So that is different thing than saying number of pixels can vary. Well, 15 pixel on this screen will be 15 pixel on your mobile, and 15 pixel on your TV as well. So yep. So the reason is you shouldn't be using it. Otherwise, if you try to go mobile or even on the larger devices, you will be having the same smaller size of font. You can just use EM on all other levels, except on the root level you can use some sort of fixed font there, and then using your style sheet or your media queries you can handle root size or the font size of the root element, and then of course all the elements down there can use REM or EM. So that should be the best practice as of now. Write a CSS snippet to center an entire element, not its content of course, without using text align rule on its parent. So this will not work because you have to put width as well, and this is okay. This is entirely wrong. There is nothing called margin colon left auto, margin colon right auto, nothing like that. Uh, this is also wrong. You have to set width because this is a blocked guy, or even if this is not a block, you have to set width to make it center. Of course, you have to do left and right to the auto, but yeah, I don't even know what's happening here. Width is 100 pixel, blah blah blah. Margin left is auto, right is auto. So yeah, that it should work. Really? I mean, you don't have to use margin and then override again. You can just combine this here as well. I don't know why. Again, you have to use width. This is better solution. For example, width is equal to some any width, percentage, EM based or pixel based. I don't care. You don't have to set to top and bottom to 0. You just have to set left and right to auto. That's it. Explain the difference between visibility hidden and display equals to none. So if you use display equals to none, then the element itself is wiped out from the screen, including the space covered by the element. So everything looks like, well, that element was never there. In case of if you use visibility equals to hidden, then you are wiping just the element, not the space covered by the element. So it stays there. So you can use the visibility hidden. Let's say if you want to use, you want to still have the same layout for some reason, you can use that one. And then if you want to wipe out including the space covered by the element, just use display none, which is mostly people use. This is one in some few special cases only. I want to set font color of all p tags to red for the devices with the width greater than 512 pixel, and only on those devices write a CSS snippet. So of course, when I'm saying something related to device width, you have to think about the media queries. And when I'm saying width greater than 512 pix, means I'm saying the minimum width has to be 512 pix, right? So you have to use min query. So something like, okay, only screen, I'm going here and here. No, this is wrong. Wrong in the sense this entire class should be inside another set of parentheses for this media query. Right now they are just lying outside. Well, like this. So you have media only as screen. I didn't ask for this one, but I would take it. Min width 512 pix and p, which is inside another braces, color equals to red, so which is good. Question: can you explain the solution for question 8 again? Okay, before that, if you have any question, what was solution? Yeah. So let's say you have some div and you want to center it. If you do something like margin left auto, margin right auto, let's see what happens. Nothing happens. It's still here, not in the center. Let's put some background to see where it is, or where are the boundaries actually for this guy. Not colors, there is no property, color blue, well, gray. So yeah, even though if you have set margin left and right to auto, it's not in the center. The reason is you need to have width on that one. Any sort of width would be fine except auto. So let's say 100 pixel, and now it's in the center. Okay, without width, it will cover entire available space from its parent. Of course, you can put something like 80% or any percentage based width as well, and that should also work. So I think that is the 8th question. So of course, just making the width, the margin left and right to auto doesn't make any difference to this guy. You have to set some sort of width as well. Okay, so that was the quiz. Any question about the quiz or any other question? Otherwise, we can start our journey, or we can resume our journey in the world of JavaScript. And yeah, we will see some more awesome things in JavaScript today. So awesome that yeah, you will be banging your head against your wall. Okay, so let's start talking about what? Let's start recapping JavaScript. So yep, we went through the introduction, blah blah blah, ECMA, ECMA, ECMA. Then we said, okay, where to include the script. So we have so many places, include wherever you want. Of course, you will all include at the bottom of the page. So you know the difference, so that's why you will include it there. Use console.log. In some of the session when I get time, I will also explain some other features of console.log, or not the console.log, actually the entire console, and especially in case of Chrome. I don't care about other browsers, but yeah, here as well. We will discuss all this if we have some time somewhere in this JavaScript sessions. Again, yeah, blah blah blah. Is case sensitive and requires semicolon, doesn't require semicolon actually, but yeah, just put it. It requires var keyword to, of course, you have to use var keyword to declare variables. What would happen if you don't use it? We will discuss in detail probably today or tomorrow, I don't know. Undefined is the first type of data type. In case of JavaScript, you don't have to set or assign this type of this data type to any variable. It is automatically there if the variable is never initialized. That means if it's only declared, that's it, and that's why it signifies. So although you can programmatically assign undefined to your variable, don't do that. If you want to do that, I mean, just use null. They will behave same as far as conditional statements are concerned. I mean, we saw with the booleans, right? Everything with the 0, null, undefined, -0, blank string, not a number, false, everything from this group evaluates to false. So we can use the same thing, but yeah, if JavaScript is doing something separately for this, keep it like that, so that at least you know the difference, whether it was uninitialized or whether you have assigned some, or you have nullified the object. So just keep the separation. I would like that one. Okay, then of course we went to string. So there are two ways to define, or rather create or initialize, whatever we call it. String variable. This is, I don't know why it is there. Well, actually we will see why it is there, but yeah, this is the best way. And then you can use this first name directly without even asking for a value of function if you go with this way. So that was a string, and then of course the discussion between, we went through the discussion between single quotes or the double quotes. For most of the times I use single quotes. Who cares about double quotes? Anyways, then boolean. You have all these options to initialize a boolean variable. Just follow this. This is important. 0, -0, null, empty string actually, undefined, not a number, and false. They will all evaluate to false. So of course you can always use some kind of this code or snippet in your project or anywhere wherever you are using JavaScript. You don't have to compare my var is equals to undefined or my var is equals to null. Don't have to. It's automatically something like this. What else? Then we discussed something about number. So you have number constructor. The only use that I can think of using number constructor is parsing. But again, if you want to parse it, just parse using parseInt, which is much more powerful than number. And in the same time, you can also parse radix, or the base of your number system, if you are having this string or the first parameter in some other number system, like what? Like binary, octal, or hexadecimal. The default one is decimal. Again, you have one math object available in JavaScript to perform all these mathematical operations. And then yeah, you have toFix and toPrecision as well. We saw the result of these two yesterday. What else? Object, we will cover it today very much in detail. Actually, this is the core of JavaScript, this guy. If you know this, you can say at least, okay, I know JavaScript. Not all much, but yeah, some part. If you don't know object, it's nothing. You don't know anything about JavaScript. So talking about operators, so of course operators are pretty much same like other languages, except the plus guy, which behaves differently depending on what type of operands you are using. So what type of operands are surrounding this guy. So if those both of them are numbers, then of course it will add them. If any one of them is a string, then of course it will concatenate and give you the resultant string. We saw that. Then logical, blah blah blah. Conditional, you just put some condition. Depending on its true or falsy behavior, you can execute the statement written here or here. Then we saw something about logical operators, especially the default, how to set default values in your local variables. You can set something like this, or even initialize objects. if you don't get, or if this guy returns false or evaluate to false. All this we have already seen, evaluates to false. Compare is an interesting thing, type cohesion. So this may not work the way you have thought. So if these are not working, try replacing with triple or explicitly equals to or strictly equals to, whatever. In this case, of course, you are asking JavaScript to check for the data types as well as the value. In this case, JavaScript is free to check only the value, and it will take care of the data type itself. And when JavaScript takes care of something, then of course you are messing up with your own application. And then we talked about the control structure, the for loop, the if then else, the switch statement. Really, I never use switch statement in my production code for some reason. Anyways, for loops, two types of for loop. One is just your traditional I equals to 0, I less than length, I plus plus kind of thing. Another one is your for in, which is more like for each loop in Java, where in this case the person is collection and it can be object in case of JavaScript, or an array, because there are only two collections in JavaScript. Just an object, which is kind of a hash map, and then array, which is kind of weird. So, and then while loop. So you set the condition, go. If condition is false, get out. And there is one more called do while. Go through that one if you need that one as well. I never required that in production for some reason. Try catch error, try catch finally block, the same thing that you have in case of Java as well. And now I think even in the C++ CR11, not sure if everybody has heard about that recommendation. Anyway, so this is try catch finally. You execute something, if it throws some exception, there is something to catch you, and then this will always be executed, no matter whether you are coming from a try or a catch. You can also throw custom exception as anytime as you want, and then in that case they will be handled via the catch. And as soon as you use throw exception, you have to use try catch, just like Java. Okay, any doubt, any question? Okay, we are good. So let's talk about objects. So what are objects in JavaScript? So JavaScript, well, nothing. If you know hash maps or hash tables in C, or hash maps in Java, or maps, what are they? What are those collection objects? Just the name value pairs. You put some keys and you put some object, and then yep, that's your hash map. Just like here as well, we have objects which are nothing but just some collection of name value pairs. I don't know PHP, but yeah, there are something called associative arrays. So it's similar to those as well. Hash maps in Java or hash tables in C++. The important thing about hash maps, or comparing JavaScript objects versus hash map and hash table and everything else, is because in JavaScript you don't have to define what type of object or what is the data type of object that your object will be storing. So you don't say something like, or you don't declare a variable like hash map and then those less than, greater than, or the template that you give, for example, string comma object, saying this is a hash map, or this is a map containing a string key and an object value. In JavaScript, nothing is required. So this is how we can create object. So you can of course use the object constructor. Again, who has time to write all these characters? Just use this one, same thing, no difference. So you can always use this parentheses. These are not parentheses. These are, I don't know, angular brackets. Let's call them angular brackets. So yeah, you can always declare object via this way. You don't have to write 3, 4, and some more characters. Now you have declared this object. What to do with that? Well, of course, in that case, you can put some properties. So every time I don't call them keys or name value pairs or something. I say properties and value. So right now I'm putting some property on the object, and this is the value. So there are two ways to access or set property. So of course you can use the dot notation, or you can use this array-like thingy. But instead of sending the index, of course, because this is not an array, this is object, you set the property name or the property, and then you can get or set your value onto that object. So let's just see until here what it is doing and how it is represented in case of your console. If you want to see, code goes here. Okay, this is your object, and you say initialize like this, and you say console.log. Run it. So right now it's saying, okay, I'm an empty object. Good. Let's put something. Dot, I don't know, name is equals. I don't even have any other example because I'm so lazy with the names of variables. Okay, so we have something on object, and now it does have a property name and the value JavaScript. Although you have used single quotes, Chrome developer tools will use double quotes for strings always. We have this, and again, if you want to just print the name or access the name, you can just say object.name, and then it will give you the value associated with this property, which is JavaScript in this case. Again, if you want to use something like this, this is the same thing. It will return you the JavaScript. So it's similar to your array getter kind of construct, but instead of passing some index, you are passing the key for that. And then of course your keys have to be unique. If you use the same key again and then you try to set something, well, you are messing up with the old value. So that's what you are getting. So again, keys are unique, just like in your hash maps or any kind of map or associative array, because these are the keys, and then they are of course unique. Another thing is, don't depend on the order of insertion here. So for example, obj dot other property is other property. Forget about this, and let's try to print and see what is the order here. So here name comes before str, right? Let's see now, and then you will see str comes after name. So Chrome takes care of this order. If you see in the Microsoft IE, or I think Firefox, that always stores, or that will always display in terms of the alphabetical order. So be aware of that thing. So don't depend on the order of keys on objects. If you want to work with only orders, and it's very important for your application to have the correct insertion order, then use arrays. You will always be fine with those things. We'll talk about arrays, but here don't depend on this order of the insertion here. This is not a linked hash map. This is normal kind of map. Or I should stop saying map. This is object. Again, you can log it. It will show you something like this. Let me see. There is another function, dir. Yep. So right now, if you see the log one, you just see the basic representation, right? You want to see property wise expanding entire object, because this is not just this. Just like you have the Java object class, which is the parent of everything. Here the object is the parent of everything, and it will have so many functions as well. So how to get those particular things? So instead of log, use dir or dir, or whatever you call it, and then you will be having proper thing. So here it will say, okay, name is of course a key, and then here, and then str in here. And now you see here the order is of course in the alphabetical order, because that's how every browser will store. Again, this is not specified anywhere, but that's how I think the browser stores internally, although they may display something else to you. What is this proto? Again, this is inheritance going on here. We'll talk about this. So this is the proto, and then these are just some default methods that you will have available on all the objects, just like in case of your Java classes, whatever you declare or define a class in Java, that is always an child of object, or that always inherit from the object class. So few of the methods like equals or hash code or different things, toString. So here as well you have some default methods. We will talk about this sort of inheritance and what is this proto guy, but that's not for now. Right now just consider the property and the value, another property and another value. So that's until here. Now should I use this one or this one? So both are fine as long as you are not using any reserved keyword. So for example, for is a reserved keyword, right? You use it in the for loops. to define something like that. If you use with the dot notation, it will throw you syntax error, for is reserved or something like that. So but instead you can use something like this, and then it will be used properly, no problem here. But again, I don't even, or you shouldn't be even using the keywords actually, just for making sense of your code. Now this is the dynamic way of adding properties, right? Or not the dynamic, but yeah, you can add properties here dynamically as well, because you know the object reference. You have to just say property dot, or dot property equals to some value, and if you are getting the property in the variables, you can use this notation, and then the value coming from some variable as well. So that's fine. What if you already know some of this, or a little structure about the object, or entire structure of the object? So you can also use this, or you can expand this object and put your properties and values directly there. Now you can again think here. So this is also recursive. So your JavaScript objects are recursive, or can be recursive. So they can contain this object on their properties as well. And then again, this chain can go as many long or deep as you want. So here what we are saying, object is a property name with a string value, another details property with some another object, and that object is having color as a property, and string value, size, and the numeric value. So yep, that can be done. Then of course, if you want to traverse to this size or this color, you have to go from obj.details.color, just like you have it here. Or if you want to go with the other notation, then of course you can go something like this as well. So this is the basis of object. Any question? Okay, so everybody knows, no questions, good. Now let's talk about arrays then. So this is all about object. The only difference that you can think as far as initializing an array versus an object is this angular braces. If you use angular braces, then of course you are initializing object. If you use square braces, then you are initializing arrays, but that's for later. In JavaScript, arrays are dynamically expanded, so you don't have to provide size before using your array like you use in Java or C. So you don't have to tell JavaScript how much initial or how much length of the array you are asking for. So they are dynamically expanded. Just put or just initialize it without anything. Another interesting thing is in arrays, in JavaScript arrays, you can have values with any data type, and that can include an object as well. So we will talk about this line more. So for example, you can declare array or initialize array via this. Why again write so much code? Just use this construct. Again, if you use square brackets, that's an array. If you use angular brackets, that's an object. Now what about this line? So it says a single array can have any type of data type, any type of data. So here I am putting strings at the 0 index, another string at the 1, but number at the next index. So that's entirely possible. Or this is again the same way of initializing that we were doing here, property by property. Here we are doing index by index. If you already have a list, then of course you can expand the same square brackets and put all the values that you want using comma separated values. Or of course you can use this one as well. Nobody has time to write this much code. So let's see what is happening here. So we have this, and everything is useless unless you print it. So of course you will see this awesome first, second, 50 is a number, so of course it's out of string. The first two ones are the strings. Let's see what happens when I do dir or dir. In that case, of course, I get the real object, and then I can go 0, 1, 2. So these are your indices 0, 1, 2, and these are corresponding values. Now you see another property on the array which says length. That means of course you can access the length as well, just using the property array.length. Can you see 3? Again, just a number. So there are 3. Now this length guy, this is interesting, and you have to be aware of this thing. Since JavaScript doesn't ask you for how many elements that you want in this array, meaning JavaScript arrays are dynamically expanded. So now I have 0, 1, 2. I did it for 0, 1 and 2 initialize on those locations. Now let's do it at 100. Not this. This will be an error. Something like this. So what do you expect the length to be? Yeah, in normal any common sense we will say 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Well, hell no. The length is 101. The reason is this length guy is always not that reliable, or actually this is reliable, your insertion is not that reliable. The manual accessing or manual insertion in the array is not that reliable, because right now what JavaScript is doing, it will initialize something as 0 at 1 and 2, and as soon as you put some larger value, what it would do actually if you expand it here, not here actually, this guy, it will put all other values in between undefined. So of course it's not even showing those values. So if you try to print, they will all be undefined. So anything from 3 to 99 on this array is undefined. How to check that? Well, what you can do is you can loop, the length property, the loops, and we can just log to see what's happening. So you see nothing. Yeah, the reason is because spelling mistake. And now network down. Really? Anyway, so whenever it runs properly, it will print first, second, 50, and so many undefined in between, and at the 100 index it will print 2, 3, 4, 3, 5, 3, 4. So the meaning is avoid avoid initializing or avoid setting values just using index and using length property in conjunction with. There are lots of other methods available in JavaScript for JavaScript arrays. So just use those methods and they will properly set, or they will probably push the element at the end of the array. You don't have to figure out what is the current size. Oh, frick. It's in the infinite loop. Awesome. Something got broken. And that's why my CPU is cranking. And that's why this tab is also dead. And that is why the Chrome is also dead. And in some time machine will be dead. Okay guys, see you tomorrow. Okay, hold on. Not tomorrow actually. Okay. Let's see what is the performance of my system. 3.55 GB, just because this is evaluating this array infinitely with 99% of the processing, and it's gonna kill everything, and very skill end process. Please do it. Thank God. Okay, so we are back. Not that back actually. Sometimes that happens when you screw something big time. So looks like even graphics card is being used for some screwed up reason. If you have any doubt, you can ask now. We have a lot much time. Okay, so finally we are back, I think. Yep. Will it print null? No, it will print undefined, because null is not undefined is the default that your JavaScript will assign to unknown things, not null. So that's why. It will print undefined from 3 to 99. We're just gonna copy paste from here. Let's say 100, put some number, garbage. Or even you can put booleans, okay? You can put anything actually. Any data type, even an object would be fine here. Haha, in this time. I'm literally working too many languages in one day. So that happens. Let's check there is no infinite loop. Okay, we're good. So here again you can see it worked. So you see first, second 50 and then 97 undefined and then one true at the last. So the reason is because length is not taking care of how many values that you have. It's just taking care of the last index being used, and then it will just say last index plus 1. So that's why try or avoid using the manual way of inserting values into array. There are lots of other methods that we will discuss now, and then using those you can handle everything for your daily purpose very efficiently without this issue. And then this issue has been explained here as well. Yep, something like this. So you have dog, cat, and hen, and then you have, at 100 you specify fox, you say length, and it returns 101. So the reason I have explained. That's how JavaScript behaves in case of arrays. So let's talk about array operations. So the first one is toString. Okay, let's create a proper array so that we can reuse it multiple times. First, second, third, fourth, and fifth. So we have this array, and let's start displaying the options. So, the methods. The first one is toString. So of course, if you want the string representation of this thing separated by commas, then of course you can have this. This is string separated by commas of all the values. So this is your toString. What else? And I have one question from someone. For assigning a boolean value to an array element, do we have to create a new boolean variable using new keyword? Why? Didn't I tell you you don't have to use boolean or any sort of constructor anywhere? You can directly initialize something from like this. Just put this thing on to the array just like I did somewhere, or if I try to do here, true. This is just a normal Boolean value, of course, without quotes. So this is a Boolean, but here you are getting the string representation. The entire thing is a string because you asked for toString. So you don't have to use any constructor for that matter, anywhere actually, or until now, whatever we have discussed. Coming back to array operations, the first one was very easy. Just like in Java, you have toString method, which is for the serializing most of the time, the object. So yeah, here as well. Now the second one is of course the concat or concatenation. So of course there is one required, and all other are optional items that you can put, and then it returns a new array with the items added to it and no change to original array. So what is the meaning of this? Let's see here. I have another array. Let's say I say 6th and 7th. So I have this, and then I want to get, okay, let's say C is equals to arr.concat, and I pass another into this, and let's see what do we have on arr, what do we have on another, and what do we have on C, just to check if something has been changed. Since we have used this method, something has been changed on arr array or another array, or what happened to C, what do we have in C, and in what order. So of course the first one we printed was arr, so it stayed same, no change on that one. The second one stayed the same. What is the third one? So third one is the concatenation of the element of the first, and then elements of second in the same order that they are in the arrays. So of course you can use concat to do that. If there are multiple, so for example I want to even do this multiple times, something like this. In that case, this is your arr, then you are adding 6th, 7th, 6th, 7th, 6th, 7th, and 6th, 7th because you use multiple arrays. So of course the method is defined for that one as well. What if you don't give anything? In that case, you see, you are getting a true copy here of the first array itself because you are not concatenating it with anything. And also important thing, the original array is not being changed here. You are getting a new array. So it's good for copy as well, but we have other methods for copying properly. What about the next one, which is join, and it requires, or it has some optional separator if you want to give it. So we have seen toString, which just returns the string representation of this array in comma separated format, right? For some reason you want to join the objects or values of this array, but with some other separator for that matter. So of course if you use join and then just try to display it, I'm gonna really remove this comment out. So right now I just have this or this. So what I'm doing, I'm joining, or I have used join on array. So what it will do, it will just take all these values and separate them by comma. It's similar to toString as of now, but I want to be advanced. I want to separate them by a pipe. So of course you can get pipe in between, or you want to separate out by, I don't know, some spaces. You can separate out by this or whatever you want, or any other character as well for some reason. So of course you can join the elements separated by the separator that you pass into. So of course that can be done. What if I pass a numeric value? So okay, that numeric value is sandwiched between all the values of the array. So this is your join, and then of course nothing happens to your original array. You get a new string, and then it would be the joined values with this separator. So that's the join. What else? Next we have pop. So what it does, actually it removes it and returns you the last item. So of course pop means popping out one item from the array, and from where? So of course from the last position. So I'm going to skip out this right now, and then let's say array dot pop, and also display what do we have in array actually. Was it changed? So I'm displaying ARR and C. So C should contain the last value because we have used pop. So it should contain fifth, and then array should be just like this much, because we have physically changed the array. So we have first to fourth now in the array actually, and then we got the last one out, and then it was returned and set into the C in this case, because pop will also return as well as remove last item, and original array is modified. What else? So of course pop works at the back end or at the end of the array. Then there is something else, which is push. So you should be using push anytime you want to add something to the array, if you don't care about index actually. So here you can use push, and you can push as many items as you want, and of course it will add one or more item depending on how many numbers you pass here, and to the end of the array, and original array is modified. So let's say instead of using this, I'm gonna say it doesn't return anything actually. So I'm gonna say push sixth now. So of course it can, and it will be changed, and then now it will have fifth and sixth because you have pushed it. What about pushing multiple values? Of course you can pass comma separated values in this method, and they will be pushed properly. So 6th and 7th will be added. Can you push an array inside an array? I don't know. Let's try. Do all these crazy things. Something you will learn new. So what it did actually, so it's an array until here, of course entire thing is array, but 6th element is an array. So first, second, third, all the strings, and then 6th element is an array of having this two, which makes sense because when you are saying push, then if you are, this is just one value here, right? If you want to separate out these values and set in this array, then use concat, not the push one. So push only works, or push should be used only when you are trying to do something like easier one. So yeah, that can be done here as well. So again, push and pop, they both work at the last index or at the last item. Pop removes the last item, while push adds something to the last of the array. An original array has been changed in both the cases. What else? The reverse. So of course you say reverse, and then it will return you the new. Let's see if it reverses the array actually, or the original array. So yeah, it does change the original array. Okay, when you use reverse, what it would do actually, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. That's what it did, and it has changed the original array as well. So this is your reverse method. What else? Then we have shift. So the pop, it works on the last item, right? If you want to do the same thing on the first item, well, use shift. So it removes and returns the first item. You can try that. I will give you the break to shift. Use the shift. Only difference is, of course, pop works at the last, shift works at the first item. There's one more called slice, and you can use it to get the sub array from an array, and of course the original array will not be changed. So how to use slice? Well, just the name suggests slice, meaning you are cutting down, chopping down the array. So let's say you have RC is equals to, and you say slice, and then of course it accepts two values. Let's try one only. I mean, the other one is optional actually. So you try to print this, and then you say what happens to C. So let's print and see. So of course we are printing ARR first, no change in the ARR. What is C actually? So what the slice did, it started at index 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and including that until the end. So it created a separate array, because you see this array. So it created a separate array and then returned that into the C. So that's what slice did. What if you want to get a segment? Then of course you can put start as well as end. So let's say 1, 2, 4. In that case you will get an array starting from the 1 index inclusive and before ending 4 in the 4th index. So 0, 1 is included, 2, 3, and before ending 4. So it's always like in case of numerical terms it is something like 1 is included while 4 is not, something like this in this case. So that's your slice. Sorry. Okay, so this is slice, and then you can use it to return a subarray. Most of the times if you want to copy, people or even I use slice to copy an array. Why? Because, well, you just say something like this and you get a copy of the array, because you are saying start at the first and at the end, of course, because you are not specifying any of these values. You are still using or making the same call, and then it's saying, okay, I will give you the entire copy of the array. So now you see this, you have the ARR on line number 7. That's what you are printing, and even C is the same, but of course a copy in this case. So usually people use slice instead of concat, because you are not concating anything. Slicing makes sense in this case just for semantics. But yeah, that's what you can use. Now there should be a question in all of you or in your minds. We have methods to push and pop at the end, and we have methods to do it on or remove from the shift from the first, as well as there is another method to add some element on the first at the first index, which is unshift. What about in the middle? If you want to do something in the middle, then of course there is another method called splice. I will talk about sort. This is all actually in the sorted alphabetical order. So let's talk about splice then. So splice is the most powerful method of array, and then using this you can get all these different methods like shift, pop, push, unshift, all of them together just via this method. So splice, when you use it, so the argument or the arguments are where is the starting position, how many elements that you want to delete from that position, and how many elements that you want to insert starting from that position. So we will handle all this, and of course it will modify the array by deleting a section, whatever delete count you pass here, and replacing that particular section via this next item that you specify. Our original array is of course modified. So what I want to do is I will say, okay, ARR dot splice, and then say, okay, start at index 1, remove 2 items, and then add few more items like 1, 2, something like this. Let's try to print and see what happened to the array. So you say start at 1 index, inclusive of course, delete 2 items from there or starting from 1, and then of course add few items there. So you see what happens here. What happened here actually, it started with the index 1, so 0 and 1 here, and you said remove 2 items from here. So this guy and this guy have been removed, so the position is still here, and then you are saying add 2 more items at this position now. So of course you will be having first, 1, 2, 4th, 5th, first, 1, 2, 4th, 5th, right? So that's how you can handle it. What if you don't pass this? Then of course you are just asking for removing 2 items from this array, and then this will be first, 4th, and 5th. Now what if you want to just remove one of the item from any place? Well, you can say start from that index, remove 1 item. So that's how you can use it will give you the feature of extracting some item from the middle of the array. So that's also possible, right? And if you want to have behavior of shift, then this is your shift, right? And if you want to have behavior of your, what was that, pop, then something like this, th, and of course -1. Oh sorry, -1 not here, -1 here. So yeah, it will give you that behavior as well of the pop, and then of course you can insert again in the middle. So for example, I don't want to delete anything, but I want to insert something in the middle. So yeah, that's what you did here first, and then at that index, and then everything will stay in the same order. So you can see splice is much more powerful method, and it can be used to, instead of shift, pop, push, all this kind of thing. And there's one more called unshift, which is just reverse of shift. Now coming to the sort. So what is sort? So again, your sort function, it will sort your items in the array in alphabetical order. It doesn't even know numeric order. So we will see some examples here. So right now we just apply array.sort, and then as I said, original array is modified. So we will just print it and see what happens in after sorting this, because this is of course not in the alphabetical order, right? So we do that and we'll see fifth, of course, the alphabetical order from A to A to Z. Now what if I put numbers here, just the numbers, or if the array is of number? And then we think maybe it should print in the sorted order. Well, it will not, because JavaScript doesn't, or this sort function doesn't understand anything other than alphabetical sorting. So what to do in this case, or in any other case, because this is very simple case of handling sort. But what about if you have array of objects, then you want to sort on the properties of that object? Well, in any case, you have to write a comparator function. So if you have any experience of writing comparator function in collection sort in Java, or using sort on the collections object in Java, or even in case of C somewhere, C++, of course, this is the optional comparator function. So you can pass it here. So what I will do is I will just define a function and then name it, I don't know, something called comparator, compter, two values A and B. And I can just return something here. If A is less than B, return true, else return false. Something like this. I don't know if this is ascending or descending. Let's try. And then just pass the reference of that comparator into this, and now let's see what happens. It should be in some specific order, either ascending or descending. So this is of course descending order now. Just change the angle here, or not the angle, just change the operator, and then you will see the ascending order. So this is how you can use the comparator function. I mean, this is very easier example where you are just comparing two different values from these arrays, and you are trying to compare which one is smaller. Then of course your JavaScript sorting function, whatever the browser has implemented, will use your function to evaluate which one is bigger, and then decide where to put, or if swap it. Because even all the merge sorts, all the sorts that we have in algorithms require you to have some sort of swapping elements, right? And before that you have to take some decision whether to swap or not. So this will help your sort function when your code is executed by the browser, and then it will be properly in the correct manner. So again, this is very easy. Let's say you have, instead of array objects, normal objects here, or normal values here, you have objects having some properties. So something called, I don't know, name. You want to sort on the name, just like we had that array, so the object actually here, not here, here. You have array of all these type of objects for some people, and then you want to sort on their name. In that case, of course, your array will be having the objects that we saw there, but instead here what you can do is it will still pass this one, but here you will be comparing the specific property, something like if a.name is greater than this, then do this, otherwise don't do, something like this. So of course right now I don't have objects, so it won't be able to find out name property on this values, so that's why you see the error, or that error is because of this actually. But of course later on it will not be able to find these properties, or it didn't do anything. So that's your comparator. If you may want to use it for some reason, because by default JavaScript does the alphabetical sort only. So we saw the splice already. Let's I mean, you can work on the unshift, which is just opposite of shift. So shift removes the and returns the item from the first position. Unshift will just add a single or a list of item to the start of the array. And of course, original array is modified. The one index of not available in IE8. So of course, important thing. The index of will return you or will return you true or false, or not the true or false. Index of the item that you are trying to search. So for example, forget about this sort now. So we want to see what is the index of the values third. So of course, if it is available in the array, it will give you the proper index, something like 2, 0, 1, 2, right? If it cannot find some value, then of course it will return you -1. So this is the difference. It will not return you 0 because 0 is a valid index here. So it will return you -1. So you have to compare against -1 if you want to check whether the element or the item is available in the array or not. And then again, this is the index of. There is an optional parameter which says where you want to start while looking for this particular guy. So you can say something like, okay, third, but start at fourth location. So of course you will return -1 only in this case. Let's try it again. -1, you didn't find third here. Why? Because you asked to start at fourth. 0, 1, 2, 3, fourth, or the last, or even third won't work, right? Because you asked to start at specific position, and in this case we are asking it to start after the actual element here. So that's why it will give you index relative to this guy. So, well, not relative to this guy. It will start from that location, but it will give index relative to the entire array. Or am I wrong? Am I wrong? Nope. Because really you will use something like this. You want to scan entire array first most of the times, but still good to know. So yep, I will give you 5, 10, 15, 10 minutes, or let's say 15 minutes to go through the last few slides that we covered, which are just 3, and all these functions as well, and then we will start again at 8 o'clock. So go through this. You already have slides, you have Plunker, so you can do all these things. And if you are lazy enough to open a Plunker, here is your console. Start typing here, or just something like, you can do anything here as well. You can declare variables and use them later. For example, arr dot, what do you want, index of sort. Yep, you can do all this type of codings here as well. So yeah, we'll start again at 8 o'clock. Until then, you have time to go through array, object, and array operations, and then after you come back, we will talk about JSON. Okay, so I hope you have tried some of these functions that I didn't go through, or the way how objects and arrays behave. So if you have any question, let me know. Otherwise, I can start talking about JSON. Okay, so let's talk about JSON. What is JSON? So JSON is nothing but JavaScript object notation. So it's kind of a JavaScript object, just like what we saw 2 slides back, this object, but some strict conditions. So this is not a JSON, but again, your all JSONs are, or all JSON objects are JavaScript objects. So the reverse is not true actually. So your JSON is of course JavaScript object, but with some strict conditions, so some kind of notation or a specification. And the guy who created, well, you already know him, Douglas Crockford. So yep, he proposed JSON specification, I think in 2007, I don't remember. But now this JSON is the data exchange format for the web right now. So I mean, usually what data exchange format that you have that we all know about. So one was XML, right? Normally we pass HTML pages from servers to your client or to your browsers. Now this is one of the most important data exchange format in JSON, and it is just for the plain data. And the reason it is important, well, every device who is executing JavaScript can understand JSON, because JSON is native to JavaScript. You don't need any sort of parser to traverse into this object. Of course, you need a JSON parser for converting a JSON string into JSON object, but here you don't need that. We will talk about parser on the next slide. But let's just see what are those strict conditions which your normal JavaScript object has to follow to be termed as JSON object. So again, why we need actually JavaScript JSON? So in that case, well, as I said, it's essentially a subset of JavaScript object literal, and literal is just the way we saw here. This is called the object literal actually. When you are specifying properties inside object just like this becomes object literal. So you have that object literal, so it's just your JSON is just a subset of that one, because you are putting some conditions on that object literal, so of course it will be a subset. And then why you need it? Well, because those conditions are required, because main purpose of JSON is to pass over the network, and if something has to pass over the network, it has to be convertible into the bits, or for more basic things, characters, right? It has to be converted into UTF-8 characters if you are passing in between. So for that purpose, the JSON has to be serializable. So remember, when you want to on the backend side, if you want to pass an object on the socket output stream or something, you have to implement serializable interface for that particular class or that particular class of objects. So here as well, to make it serializable, because ultimately you want to send the data to any other system over the network, because that's why it is called data exchange format. You are exchanging data between two nodes, and those two nodes can be your server and your browser, and the connection of course will require internet connectivity or connectivity. So of course it has to be serializable, simple meaning it has to be convertible into string or characters, or of course characters can be properly converted into bits or bytes, whatever you call it. So that's why those conditions are imposed on the objects, and when they satisfy the conditions, it becomes JSON. So it's nothing new. The conditions are the keys must be string. So here in the example, we already had used string keys, but you can, in JavaScript objects, you can also use any sort of keys. They can be number, they can be boolean, can be anything. So of course the keys must be string if you are using JSON, or if you are posing those conditions. So yeah, keys must be string. All the strings must be double quoted. So this is the other place where I say you have to use double quotations. Single quotations are not in the specification, so you have to use double quotation. The third one is it can have only one of these possible values. So it can have the value as string or a number or an array, true, false, which are boolean, null, or another JSON object. That's it. It cannot have functions. We will tomorrow when we discuss functions, you will see that we can also specify functions on the object properties. So instead of specifying JavaScript here, we can say function definition, and it can be assigned to the property on the object. If you don't know that, just don't leave it right now. We will discuss that tomorrow. So yep, but the conditions on JSON or specification of the JSON says it can have only this possible values, or one of these possible values: string, number, array, booleans, null, and even another JSON object. So if we talk about this object, and then if it has to be a JSON, then what are the transformation that we have to tell or we have to do in this object? So what we have to do is just convert keys into strings, which we already have. All the strings must be double quoted, so we I think fine. And then we are using one of these values, so we are good there as well. So again, the keys has to be a string, and your values have to be one of this, and all the strings must be double quoted, no matter whether they are in values or in keys. So that is one interesting thing, and that's how your JSON is defined. Now when you pass this object to your AJAX request, it can probably be sent to your server without any issue. And of course, if you want to validate whether these values are being, or this specification or conditions are being properly followed on a particular JSON or not, there is an online tool called JSON Lint. So of course you can use it. Just paste your raw data here, and it will validate whether it is valid or not. Usually you just need it for the starting few days when you do not understand JSON. After that you will be comfortable in knowing what is the issue here, if you see. But yeah, even some large JSON objects, because they can be very large, it will be hard to figure out what went wrong somewhere, if there is something wrong. Because if something is wrong on that one, it will not be able to, or of course you will not be able to pass it to the server, or if something is wrong on the JSON on the server, it will not be able to come to you on the UI. So that's why it's important that you validate at least the object structure. So that's one thing. Another thing about the keys being the string. So let's try and say, can we have any other keys? If we do have, then what are we dealing with here? So we say, okay, so this is for styles. So here, and then you say, okay, you have name, JavaScript. For some reason I am trying to put number and some more text. So that is fine. If you want to put some boolean with some other text, that's also fine, because that's normal JavaScript object. This is not a JSON. So I can put any type of key. You can put any object as a key, and then of course something else as a value as well. So that's also possible. Let's try to see what happens here, or what happens if we print it. So of course you will get 1, 2, which are actually not indices, which are actually the keys, and name and true, right? So that's what keys you put. Now one interesting thing can be, what if I do something like this? Doesn't it look similar? So instead of log, let's say dir, so that we have the structure actually. So it says 0 is first, the 1 is this, the second is this. It looks similar kind of to an array in this case. Well, there is a difference between this and the array. The first thing is, of course, this is an object here. If you try to print an array with similar kind of thing, you will have, let me read first, second and third. So I'm printing twice something. So of course the first is the data type that you see, the first one, which is this. Although I have used the 0, 1, 2 as the keys, it is an object, not an array. The second one, which is here, is an array. Now another thing is, of course, arrays have the another property named length. You don't find it here. Now of course the prototype is array here. It's the prototype is object, meaning they are derived from object. Of course they are derived from arrays. Now of course you will have all these functions that we discussed: concat, filter, which is newly, for each, index of, join, map. These are all new functions, like, but not the pop, push, all this thing. So these are available on array. What about object? Well, object doesn't have those functions. So this is the difference. Although it looks similar at first glance, these are different things. So where were we? So of course in case of JSON, you cannot have any keys other than strings, and all the strings have to be double quoted, and possible values for your of course possible values can be only from this types only, no undefined, nothing. Or in case if you don't want to go here and then you want to use something in Sublime Text, there is a plugin which I think all of you have already installed. It's called Pretty JSON, and you can use that to format your JSON inside your Sublime Text. Let's come to the JSON parsing. So what happens when you receive JSON data from the server? So let's see the real world example. So this is one of the GM showroom, General Motors. So here let's talk about the XHR. Filter it, click on the filter, which is the Ajax request, and you will see this load configuration, or let's say this model summary JSON, which is a much bigger thing. Now this is a JSON, of course, coming from the server side, and if you see the application for the request is of course JSON, but the response is also JSON. So that is the JSON. Now go to the response and you will see this entire guy, right? This is a JSON string. Now what is the difference between this, because this looks like a string, because whenever you pass something on the network, it has to be a string, because that's readily converted into bits. It cannot be an object, so of course it has to be a string on the network. So that's why you have to use some sort of parser on the browser side. When you receive this data from the server, you parse it and convert into a JSON object. So that's why we have to use JSON parsing. So of course this is the string that I'm getting from the server, just like here. Server is passing me some string and I'm getting it here. So this is a string. If you try to access some properties using the dot notation, you cannot do that because this is not an object as of now. You see the string quotation here, the first and ending, of course. That's why it's a string. Now you want to convert this string into the JSON object. So how to do that? Well, there are two solutions. The first one is the bed. Of course, there is something called eval, which is evil. So never use eval, which is evil. So forget about this. I mean, it can actually what it can do is it can parse any JavaScript here. It doesn't have to be JSON. It can parse anything and it will execute it here. So don't do it if you don't want to indulge into cross-site scripting. Yeah, cross-site scripting. See, XSS issues. Because if someone sends you some JavaScript here, this guy will just plainly execute it, which you don't want to do that. Because if some malicious person in the middle is sending you something in the JavaScript code, some script tag, and then saying something like alerts or closing the browser tab or something like that, this guy will just evaluate that script, parse it, and execute it. So of course don't use eval, and of course it is too slow as well because of the same reason. Now there is a JSON parser natively available in the browsers, of course in IE8 and higher, and all other modern browsers. You won't be supporting IE7, right? So don't worry. So JSON parser is available. Or JSON object, this capital JSON is available in all of the browsers, current browsers as of now. And there is a method called parse. So you can just pass this string into there, and then it will return you the JavaScript object that you can use readily. So let's try with this one, because as I showed you here, that's what you get from the server every time you try to call something or something in the JSON format from the server. So I have this. Now of course I cannot do something like str.name because it's a string. So what I have to do is I have to parse it into JSON or JavaScript object. So what I have to do, JSON, which is natively available global object, and then I will just pass str into this, and then you will see if I try to print object, it is an object. You see it here, object, and then all the properties are properly highlighted. For better part, you can use dir, and then it will show you the object in this format. So now on this object you can say something like, okay, object dot dob. You can use the dot notation, and then you can directly reference to the value. So that's key and value actually. So it can be done only after passing. So this is the case when you are getting some string from the server. How you are getting, of course, this is coming from AJAX request. We will talk about AJAX in detail, but still, as of at this point, let's say you are getting this data from your server somehow. Now you have to parse it using the JSON parser and then convert into object. Once you have the JavaScript object, you don't need any parser or anything for traversing this object. You can just use dot notation, for loops, whatever you want, and you can traverse to the entire depth of this object. Now you have that. So another case would be, what if I am, so on the UI you will be always working with the objects, right? You will be putting some properties, some values, you will be storing in the memory here whenever your application is running, and then at some time you want to send that entire data to the backend, to your server, but this is the object, normal JavaScript object. Now you have to send this data to your server. So how to do that? Well, again, you have to convert or stringify your object into a full string, and in that case, so let's do something like this. So you got it from the server, right? You some processing on your side, I don't know. So let's say put some new property in this one. Right now we have name, dob, author, company. Let's put city, new property, and say okay, you process more things on this object. Now you want to send this data back to the server. Now before sending that, you cannot send just the object, you have to send a JSON string like this. So what you will be doing is, what you can do, you can say okay, send data, let's create new variable, and then you can just use JSON.stringify, and as the name suggests, it can convert a JavaScript object into a stringified JSON version. And then if you try to print it, send data or something, it's just the name of the variable, then you will see this is again a string, not the object, because if you try to print the object, it was something like this. It was an object before. Now you have stringified that object. So of course you are getting a string, and this time you are having city as well because you added city after processing something. So that's how you can have the processing, or rather parsing, using native JSON parser. You can use json.parse to convert from string to JavaScript object, or if you can also use json.stringify to convert from object to JSON string, and then you can send it to your server later on. So the next one is functions. I will start that tomorrow, but before that, what happens if you have this large JSON, right? This is very large. I mean, probably 1 MB around, not 1 MB, maybe much smaller than what I'm thinking, just 20 KB, but still it's a lot of data. So if you want to see this entire data, of course, in case of Chrome, you have the preview available for each JavaScript or JSON request. You say, okay, 2013, some format. This is the format that I have created on the backend in this JSON, and that's what I'm pulling off right now. So it's nothing but some model summary regarding how different models of General Motors, including something from Buick, something from Chevrolet, and something from Cadillac and GMC. So these are different brands. This is the application for General Motors actually. So different years, different makes, and then in different makes I have different models. So this is the format that I have created on the server side. But if you want to see the raw JSON like this, and then if you open it, let's say in your Sublime Text, and copy it there, something like this. So of course you will see you won't be able to understand what is this. You won't be able to understand the structure of this JSON because this is pretty big file. Now of course what you can do is, if you have pretty JSON, just run it. I have this prettify, and if I run the prettify code, of course it will convert into JSON properly formatted. So you can see this is an array. So again, this is an object, the root one, then it is a key by the year, then again an object, again some key, and then I am having this long array which are having so many things until here. And this array is nothing but array of objects, array of all other JSON objects. So this is what you can have here. Now again, this doesn't look very good to you. If in my case, of course, it doesn't look better to me. So what I do, I copy it, or you don't have to copy there actually. Even your plain string version that you got it from here, there is one awesome website called jsonviewer.stack.hu. So it says, okay, copy here the JSON variable or your text or whatever. So it is the text. So I have copied it here. I don't care about the formatting. I will just go to the viewer, and what it would do is it would properly format those JSON for me, and then it will show you in a properly tree mode or tree display. So something like I have these 3 objects with the keys 2013, 14, and 15. If I expand each one of them, I have arrays with the keys 6, 7, 8, 15, and then each array I have, for example, in the array with the key 6, which is for I think Buick, or some model, some make of GM. Then I have 5 models, different things about model name, model picture, from where it is coming. So you can see this here properly. Even if this is very large, it's very helpful to go through all this. Otherwise, I mean, you can't understand from here. How long is this array? How many objects do you see? I mean, you have to scroll, you will forget all different things. So there's another plugin called JSON Viewer, I think, in Chrome. That's not that good actually. So I always go on this website and then paste my content of JSON here in the same raw format, I don't care. And then I just click on the view, and then it formats it for me properly. So yep, that's one of the tools that you should be using. And what are these? I don't know. Okay, any doubt regarding JSON? Otherwise, tomorrow we can start working with functions. Okay, today is what, Tuesday? You have your first module due on Friday. I'm not sure the status, or if you are having any issues. So we still have some time today. If you have any question regarding your project, let me know. I think I am constantly talking with 2 or 3 guys from this batch. I know they are working on the project, but I'm not sure about others. If you are working, or if you're having any issues, any questions, feel free to ask me now or even here on the Slack. Okay, so in that case, let's stop here today, and tomorrow eat well, because tomorrow we will be going with functions, which will be kind of confusing. So next 3 sessions, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, and of course day after tomorrow, are most important in case of JavaScript. They will be difficult sessions, so be mentally prepared for all these things. Sleep well, eat well, and then come to my class. So yep, tomorrow we'll be using I will be going with the very important concepts: functions, variable scope, something called hoisting, of course the strict mode of JavaScript. Then probably a day later we will start with closures, another important thing, and then IFE, closures and IFE, functions revisited, and then the day after tomorrow we will be going through prototype inheritance, one of the most confusing part, and very awesome feature of JavaScript actually, if you understand. So that's prototype inheritance. That will be third day from today. And then once we are done with that, which will be around 50 slides out of 80, we will start with the normal use of JavaScript, like how to access DOM elements from JavaScript, or how to change the style, or how to bind events, or what are the DOM elements that we have available actually, or the window objects, how to set some timeouts or time intervals or something like this, and some lot many few things. So yeah, we will try to do it as fast as we can, or as slow as we can. If you take time to understand, I don't have any problem. Of course, the event handling, and then probably on Saturday we will be finishing our JavaScript with Ajax. So of course, lot many slides to cover, lot many content. I think we have just covered 20, less than 20. So less than 20, or just around 20 or something. 18. Anyways, lot much to cover. Be prepared for tomorrow or next week classes, and your quiz is done. So prepare your project as well, which should be due on 11th. That should be good. Let me know if you have any problem. Otherwise, we can kill today's session. Okay. Bye bye.